Hello there, my friends and happy people. Welcome to 2 Samuel, chapter number 21. We got just a few more days left in this book. I'm going to go ahead and try and get it done before I leave Europe, which is going to be on Friday. So I'll try to get all of these done. Then we'll take a couple days break before we pick up on our next chapter, which is going to be, looks like First Kings is going to be our next book that I plan on picking it up on probably Sunday or Monday morning, and we'll start that one. But we're taking a look today in chapter 21. We see that David avenges the Gibeonites. You see, we read here in verse 1, it says, "Now there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year." There was a famine for 3 years. What did David do about it? David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered. See, just going to talk quickly on that one. You know what? If there's a famine going on in your family, in your life, please don't wait 3 years to get to God. Try to get to him a little quicker. But he got to God. And what happened? God answered. God says it is because of Saul and his bloodthirsty house, because he killed the Gibeonites. You see, it doesn't say Saul. It doesn't say it's because of Saul. It says because of Saul and his house. You see, the Bible teaches us that a son is not going to answer for a father, and a father is not going to answer for a son. But it says his bloodthirsty house. So it was all of his house. It wasn't just Saul. So there are some so David is in the house of Israel is left answering for this. But what are they talking about because he killed the Gibeonites? Well, what we need to do is we need to go back to Joshua 9. Okay, and we studied that. We've already studied that in Joshua 9, and we see, pick it up in verse 23, it says, "Now therefore you are cursed, and none of you shall be freed from being slaves, woodcutters, and water carriers for the house of my God." Okay, and that was Joshua speaking to the Gibeonites, because the Gibeonites, if you remember, they had come to Israel, because God had given Israel all of the land, and they had come and they had fooled him. They had remember they had the wineskins that were busted. They had the moldy bread and said, "We've come very far, please." And they made a pact with them, without going to God. And Joshua went ahead and made an agreement with them. Well, bloodthirsty Saul and his house. I mean, I picture like a Hitler type right there, where they just went and they just tried to annihilate them. And there still has to be, because there has to be some type of repercussion. There has to be some type of punishment, because there was a pact there. There was an agreement. There was a covenant there, and they broke it. So David, what does David do? David goes to the Lord. David does the opposite of what Joshua did. The opposite of what Joshua did. And what happened? And you see that the Lord tells David, okay, it's because this has happened. And what does David do? David doesn't say, "Lord, how do I fix it?" He goes to the Gibeonites and says, "How do I fix this?" And they come up with a solution. And David says, "I will do that." And the Lord ends up blessing. And right at the end of verse number 14, it says, "And after that, God heeded the prayer for the land, and God blessed it." All because David went to the Lord. You see, David didn't know what... I don't believe David knew what Saul had done. And if he did, he probably didn't know his whole house was involved in doing it. Because remember, David was cast out for quite a long time. But he still had to pay for it. And when he got to God, and God said, this is what we have, this is what I have against you. David was able to make payment for it. You see, God has something against all of us, but Jesus made the payment. God says, "This is what I have against you," but Jesus says, "I have made that payment." We need to accept it. God can bless us again, but we have to get to him. We have to get to God. We have to get to God. When things aren't right, we have to get to God. When things are right, we have to get to God. When things are blessed, we have to get to God. When things don't feel blessed, when things feel like they're as chaotic as can be, we have to get to God. When your husband or your wife is going crazy and you don't know what's going on, you have to get to God. When your children just don't act right, you have to get to God. When you can't break that addiction, you have to get to God. When you can't get healed, you have to get to God. When your family won't get saved, you have to get to God. Because He's the one with the answers. He's the one that saves. He's the one that heals. Our focus needs to be on Him and not on all these other things. You have to get to God. You see, in contrast, Joshua didn't get to God, and David's still paying for it. But he smartly got to God. I love you all. Get to God. Have a super day.